Hello, good evening. Welcome back to HealthWise. It's been a while, we've been off the air, and I want to thank you for those of you who are joining us tonight. Very seldom have I been so excited about a show as I am, because for the first time, I am both host and I'm also here as part of the audience. So much of the information we're about to distill tonight is of tremendous value to those of us who have been out there concerned about the extra pounds that we have, concerned about our diet. If you're like me, you've tried the Atkins diet, if you're old enough to remember that. South Beach diet. The new kid on the block is the keto diet. Maybe you've tried every flavor of hydroxycut and Ally and all the other, options out there that purport to cause or to create some type of weight loss. Maybe you are like those of us who have hit the gym, and we've tried to do so consistently for some time, but life gets in the way. And for some reason or the other, you're still struggling, and maybe, like me too, you have already given up on the prospect of finding that six-pack that has been buried for several years under a mountain of fat. We all have a six-pack. That's what I tell myself all the time. I say mine is somewhere out there. I just need to find it. I've given up because life gets in the way, age gets in the way, and you are just confused. For many of us, this COVID pandemic, I tell people every day, I tell my patients that I moved from a COVID-19 to a COVID-21 just based on the few inches I've put in around the waist. I have brought someone here tonight who I believe is going to help us. This is not a medical doctor. We want to move away from the hard, cold facts of medicine. We want to put it in the hands of someone who I am so impressed with, and I think we're so blessed and so lucky to have on the show tonight. I want to introduce my guest. I think she's well known to the Kiddishian public, but I think this tonight, if you just stick with us for a few minutes, I am sure that you will live here with some valuable information that is going to help you on your weight loss journey, on your fitness journey, on the way to change your lifestyle, because I believe that the best way to go about this is to incorporate this into a lifestyle change. So without any further ado, I want to welcome my guest tonight, Paula Collins.
Good night.
Thank you, Paula.
Good night. Thank you for having me.
Paula, I want to say, first of all, again, thank you for being the only panelist I have tonight, because I think I didn't need to have anyone else, because there's just so much information and there's so many questions that I have that I suspect this show won't suffice for it, so I'm going to have to invite you back. But let's start. I want to just, and for those of us who don't know a lot about you, I just want to perhaps just give us a bit of just a bit of information, a little bit about your background. And of course, the most important thing, how you got started in this whole fitness, because I haven't asked your age, because I was told you should never ask a woman her age, but clearly your husband is, I guess by virtue of his age, which is perhaps more public than yours, I imagine that, you have 3 kids that we know, right? But clearly you carry around the body of an 18 or 20-year-old, a fit 18 or 20-year-old, because we have seen 18 or 20-year-olds right now, and age says nothing about figure these days. So tell us something about you.
Well, originally I started out in accounting. Paula Surgeon. Collins is my name. I forget, my husband gets messed up when I bring the surgeon in, but Surgeon Collins, I keep that. But I started out in accounting, and in, I think, year 2000 or I don't remember about 2000, I went to the US. I wanted a change in job. I'd been doing accounting for years. I wasn't liking it so much, and then I went to live in the States for a minute, and I started to get overweight. In a sense that we didn't know, well, I'm Jamaican, I hope the accent rings through. So in Jamaica, we're like, oh, you have a nice Coca-Cola bottle shape. That was the thing going on. You can imagine my age. And going to New York, it was obvious that there's no Coca-Cola. You're always tired. Like, what's going on here? And I used to exercise a lot and run in the communities when I was in New York, and then I'd moved to Florida. And after I'd moved to Florida, I realized I was exercising every day and nothing was happening. So I went into Hular's World Gym in Florida, and that's where a trainer says to me, you're always coming in here and you have a good formation of a body, you're interested, why don't you do a fitness course? I'm like, okay, I could do this for me, because I'm not into training. I just want to know, because I was confused. And that's how I did my fitness course. And in 2 weeks, I was surprised that I was able to lose 10 pounds. Whether it was water weight or pound, I was like, this is a life changer. All that running, I used to run for miles. I used to do different stuff. I never exercised. I wasn't an athlete. My mother made sure of that. She was very protected of the last of 4 girls, so I never did sports. But I always had these thighs. I used to call them the thunder thighs. So I'm like, okay. And that's how I got into, and when I went back to Jamaica, I decided that I wanted to learn this business of just go back into it. Because after you've done the theoretical part of it, the practical, and that's the most important, because now you have to live. So I've been in this fitness business for 18 years. And after I went back and started, I had to compete in the Miss Jamaica Body Bikini Fitness. My first year, it was crazy. I think I got chicken pox on the week of the thing. And I thought, you know what? And I came in 6th. And when I was on stage and see how much I did not do, I could have done better. I told myself, the next time I walk on the stage, I must be the winner. I'm going to start working now. And the following year I went on the stage, it was obvious that there was no one. At that time, a little bit of muscle was very intimidating on a woman and all of that. So it was a lot of changes suddenly. But I realized how much it makes, how much the growth, even though I did, accounting for years and I did all of this, I felt that there were so many life things that had happened that I was still this scared young woman still going through life. And somehow I started forging courage more through the way I look good, even though I wasn't fully conscious that I started walking bold, and that's where my journey started. I later on became a certified track coach, IWF track coach, and I'm also a National Association of Sports Medicine, NASM certified coach. And I think that's about it, that as time goes on. So
in essence, I take it that you never went back to accounting. That was it.
No. That was it. Once I put on those sneakers, that was it.
And you found your calling. But so you were exercising. I mean, you weren't an athlete, right? I guess you wouldn't qualify as that. But you were doing some type of exercises, yes. And it wasn't working.
And I would always, because I have a son at that time. At that time, my son, I don't even remember how old he was at that time. But what I realized, I was always conscious of what it is. So I started exercising without the knowledge, but the knowledge of exercising wasn't clear because I was doing my own thing. I was just making up stuff. I was just trying to get back a 6-pack after my son.
Like most of us.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. So what was that turning point? What was it that you did differently in that moment? Because then you went from working out all this time and having your thunder thighs, or as I say, thick thighs save lives, yeah. And suddenly, and you weren't trying to save any life other than your own at that point. So I imagine that's why you went into the fitness. But what changed in your workout routine or your outlook on working out overall that made that difference, you think?
I felt empowered to help others. I'm like, wow, I want to share this knowledge. Mm-hmm. It was so life-changing for me seeing what I was able to achieve in that short time. And so I'm like, no. And then when I started going in and people started talking, like coming up to me and say, oh my God, I'm like, you have no idea. So I remember in the gym, I was the first, there was the only female. So I was always going against the male, and it was a tough battle. And I remember a trainer came up to me and say to me, you're always sharing this knowledge. Why are you sharing? Like what? And I'm like, we're personal trainers. We're supposed to charge people money. We're not supposed to be doing this. I'm like, not everyone can pay at this time, but someone in the future will see this information valuable and recommend. So for me, it wasn't about, the passion was there from the get-go, and I was just willing to share. And that was, to me, when you love something, it's not about the money anymore. It's about just showing them, like, oh my God, here's a new toy that I found, you want to see. Absolutely. And that's what it was. It was a sharing. Young girls started looking up to me. And I remember when I won in 2005, the guys were like, they changed the game, because normally you'd have a young girl come up with a body and she didn't work out, but genetically she was okay. And what happens is that I was a game changer of such, because I had muscle and it was sexy. I had a nice waist. I remember every woman was like, oh my God, it wasn't too excessive. Because when you're competing, you have to have this symmetry. You have to have that waist and hip, that difference. And I realized that, this, was in the islands is hard. It wasn't easy, because people were like, oh my God, she's too hard. There's too much muscle. And you're like, oh my God, I wonder if that's when you're always covering up. So it was a game changer at that time for us to say, no, it's not even about.
And Paul, I mean, you're giving this story and your husband is sitting across the room and there's a smile on his face, and I know perhaps this might bore every Kititian who knows the story. Pardon me, folks, I don't know the story. So I'm going to ask, how does a Jamaican in Miami end up with a Kititian who becomes a world champion, right, and becomes an Olympic champion? That story for me is because there's a smile on Kim's face across the room, and folks, you can't see it, but just take my word for it. He's reminiscing this whole thing when she spoke of the gins and the thighs and the slim waist. Take it from here. Give us the story.
This is the story I have, right? After I started working, I was like, I had to prove to be, I was like tough. I was like, I was very feisty. Like, none of you guys are going to be treating me like no girl and touchy, because it was that sex appeal. Because I saw fitness in Florida. The girls were so sexy. I'm like, oh my God, it's not that dude thing that people are thinking that it is. So I saw it from a place, and I'm like, no. So I would walk in the gym, and at a time, when you're in the States, and there's, because I went to Jamaica in 2003. I didn't know anything about Kim Collins. So I worked in the gym, and I would see these guys would come in, because they were using the Coach Mills Racers Track Club where you used to train for. And I used to see these guys, and I'm like, I'm not trying to see, like whatever. And I used to see them around all the time. I'm like, why are these guys always around the gym? I have no idea. And then they left, and he came back some years later. But I realized that Kim would just come in and touch different machines. And I'm like, why are you touching the machines? Like, what is this about? And he's like, I'm working out, So I'm like, but I've never seen you squat. Where's the squatting? He's like, I have a story for that. When I first came to Jamaica, this person had me squat, and for 6 weeks I couldn't recover, so I don't squat anymore. I'm like,
says the runner.
Says the runner. I'm like, no, sir, that's not going to work here. And so, he started, I'm like, listen, if you want to even be a guy, is supposed to be strong. And like, you see those leg press at that time, I was so strong. I was like leg pressing 845s. And we're powering out. When you see the way the girls do strength training, it's a whole different thing. And I'm like, if you want to talk to me, you got to be able to press stuff. You got to be able to bench press and do stuff. So I'm like, let me go. And he was the ego, right. The ego, no girl's gonna train me, whatever. I'm like, whatever. So later on, we started, I said, what it is, you have to leave your ego at the door. When you come to the gym, this is not a place for ego. There are heavyweights in here, and do not watch what you see. Just start where you're at. So if it means you're gonna squat, form is everything when it comes to strength training, resistance training. You could come in at a great place and just destroy that whole, your physique, because if you do something off, that's it. And Kim, what I loved about Kim, and it's after that, is the humility that he brings, because he was willing, he was like, okay, teach me how to do this. So we started with a broomstick squat. And I saw Kim later on, like years before his career, he was squatting like 845s and 235s. And for me, I even got fearful, like, you're a runner. But he was like, I want to be, this is so good. And I think that was the difference. Because I feel like if you're a doctor, if you're a lawyer, if you're a CEO of a big communications firm and you come into a room, and if you're not feeling that first thing that you see, that empowerment when you're strong, whatever you do, it's that power to like, you know, it's like, I always imagine like a female version of Optimus Prime, like, ah. But I'm Chitara. You remember those? They have like the
of course.
or Halle Berry, those
Right.
cat suits. So I'm like, that is so much. It's so much of strength. It brings so much of strength. And then back to the whole thing. When I won the Miss Jamaica body bikini fitness competition at the time it was, I wanted more. Because the rigorous training that we went through, I didn't think that was sustainable for life. I wanted something for life. I wanted a healthier lifestyle. I don't want to be eating these weird chicken breasts and white fish and no fat and all. I'm like this. So I went in search of finding the truth about health. It's not about aesthetic anymore. It's about an internal, a greater purpose.
And that's what brings me to my next question, because I'm sure it's no secret to anyone. I'm a medical doctor by trade. That's my day job. So making that connection between fitness and health is extremely important, because I think, I think the common misconception is that everyone who walks around bearing a six-pack, everyone who walks around looking aesthetically well, is not necessarily healthy. And of course, I'm making that statement, and I hope you can clarify or tell me maybe that is not the case at all. But I know that a lot of individuals, I have had patients who have tried to take every shortcut possible. Individuals who have asked for thyroid medication to lose weight. Individuals who have asked for diuretics because they have a fete to go to in the weekend and they need to lose 20 water pounds, right? Individuals, for example, who, there are so many things, even down to Ventolin, which is I'm not sure whether people know that, but Ventolin, a lot of athletes use it to shred, right? People use Ventolin to shred. So there are a lot of athletes who've asked me for salbutamol prescriptions so that they can shred. So the reality is that a lot of what we see, so the question is, at what point does this become a health matter? Not just looking, before we even go there, there's a point you raised that I want to circle back to, which is the ego that needs to be checked at the door. Well, the reality is that a lot of individuals overcompensate when they get to the gym. I did it. When I got to the gym, there's an intimidation, because you get there and then there's a really sexy female on the treadmill next to you, and you want to run, you want to make sure that she doesn't get up she gets on the treadmill before you, because that is a statement piece right there, right? And you're falling apart, but you will stay on that treadmill, and I can see the guys in the studio laughing about, because we all know it, right? Or you try to lift the heaviest weight possible because you see a guy that and you're thinking, well, and the guy's either younger or he looks leaner than you, and you think, well, you're not going to squat the 845s that you talk about and the 235s. That's a lot of weight, folks. I don't know what that is in total, but it sounds like a lot of weight, right? So a lot of individuals actually have, and there are individuals, for example, depending on where you are in terms of your aesthetics, how you look. If you have a lot of abdominal fat and you're not perhaps the most shapely from an aesthetic standpoint, it is very intimidating. And I think Paula, I don't know if you've ever been there. I don't know how big a concern your thighs were to you, but there's a young person out there right now who wants to get into the gym but feels so intimidated to get in there, because they just feel that, one, you get in there, you don't, and like him touching all the weights, because you'll have a YouTube video playing alongside, and you're trying to see how to go about doing this. So for a lot of individuals, it's very intimidating. And I think the question I want to ask really is should the objective be the aesthetics, or should the objective be being healthy?
Healthy. You know how I break my clients into the gym? Like I'm saying, when you come in here and you see all of this arrogance, just if you see this person, even if she's sexy, just imagine her on the toilet and pretend. Just imagine her in the most vulnerable situation, maybe sick. Right away she doesn't, because you're going to start forming these things in your head like, that's like, or imagine that she might have been to a plastic surgery because a lot of people cheat.
Yeah.
So I've often said, because the gym owner, it was one of the biggest gyms in Jamaica that I'd work, where we train all the Miss Jamaicas. So we had the Lisa Hannahs coming in, all the Miss World, and so we had a array of beauty. And I remember my picture was the picture on the wall that was, and I remember when I won the competition, and I was very jovial, I would make fun like that. And a former winner that won the Miss Caribbean, she said, "You're too nice. You're supposed to act a certain way now." I'm like, what changed? You know, is this the way life is supposed to be, that I can't be myself anymore? And so I've often said, if for me, owning a gym, which I eventually will, I'll put signs on the door. What you see in here, stay in here. Or for me is understanding the space you're in. You don't know who has been going to the gym for the last 20 years. You don't know who's taking this in the shadows. You don't, because people do cheat, and I think we do compare ourselves. So we have to first realize that this is the best that I have, and this is what I have, this is what I've gotten, and I love it enough to walk in here. And I tell people, I remember a big Jamaican personality came in the gym, and she just turned right back out, a big radio. And she had a little weight on, and it always bothers me. And then when I went outside, I was talking to her like, what? She's like, oh, I this, and I like my weight, and I this, but she didn't really liked it. It was that seeing all these bodies, seeing all these athletes, seeing all this beauty. But one of the things that drove me is some of those beauties are some of the most insecure persons you'll ever meet, because they're always plotting them against each other to say you look better than yourself. So how much of this are we going to come in the gym and take on when we're there to make ourselves better? I say, if you're going to the gym, do it first thing in the morning. Why? Those are the serious people. If you're going to start your day, and you can find that time to do it first thing, if you're going to choose, because they're business people, they're trying to get in and they're trying to get out. The evening gym is for the persons who are not really, that's the watching. Right. So you have to know what it is you're trying to achieve, and how, people wear these t-shirts and all these things. So you come into the gym and someone is dressed in a certain way, wear the clothes that flatters you. Don't cover yourself and then you're hiding, because all of us have different body types. Every single woman have a body part, or a man that and somebody say, I like this on you, or I like that on you. So if you look at it, some people like, I didn't like my thighs, but people were like, oh my God, those legs. When I put on shorts, it's like, why? And you realize over time, and it's courage, you realize that over time, it's baby steps. It's almost like faking it until you make it. Just do what makes you, and know that this is my space, this is my body. I'm coming here to make it better. Don't follow anyone talking about taking these, even a lot of hydroxy. When you see how bad these supplements, I went to Brazil after that, and I found out that the Brazilians, they were so beautiful, but when I did the research, they were all enhanced with supplements and all these things, and I'm like, oh my God, this is a war we're waging, but how do we can't back down? If we stop now, we're going to go back, because what are you going to do when you do not go? You're going to deteriorate. Your muscle, your skeletal mass, your muscle mass, your bone density, all those things are going to fall apart if you stop, because of what you think someone thinks about you. And you're not realizing they're there for a reason also. They're trying to fix something that you don't know.
So Paula, we've spoken about the exercise, the building of muscle mass, and why those things matter, but the show, I chose the topic tonight, and I was very deliberate in doing that, which is we are what we eat. And one of the things that I've always concerned me about, and I've struggled with, is our nutrition in the Caribbean. As a doctor, it would be remiss of me if I didn't speak to the fact that as much as COVID is sucking up a lot of the oxygen in the room today, what is still killing us at the same rate before COVID as it was is non-communicable diseases, right? Every 18 seconds today in the US, somebody dies from a heart attack. Those are still the statistics. COVID has not come around, and those have somehow shelved themselves. They continues to happen. And so much of this is lifestyle related. The Caribbean, Latin America now has the highest incidence of diabetes. And I think we know where those things lead in terms of limb amputations, in terms of the dialysis. So this is a very sobering reality for many people in the Caribbean. There are many individuals right now, it's very hard for someone to not be able to pinpoint someone in their family today who is suffering from one of those diseases. Hypertensive, diabetic, heart disease, high cholesterol, and the list goes on. It's a laundry list of diseases. But so much of it is linked to lifestyle. So much of it is linked to the changes that has happened in the last 20 years, becoming more industrialized. Everybody has a car or two cars. People hardly walk anymore, or roads aren't as safe as they once were for walking. And this, for me, is one of the reasons why I felt that this show was important, because I speak all the time. I can speak about Lipitor and all the other things that I used to do, the cholesterol and all the other antihypertensive medication. But how much of a big part does nutrition play in terms of achieving not just your ideal weight, but maintain a healthy lifestyle?
I would say 80% minimum of what you do, that eating. You know, I've often said to persons that you could stay home and lose more weight than come into a gym. And people are like, well, but why? Because you have to fix that, not just the eating, but you have to fix other stuff before you put your body, because exercise is a stressor. So if you do not know the state of your body and what you're doing, how you're eating, you can't just take your body and say, I'm ready. It's a serious, serious thing. It's serious business. So when persons would say, oh, even, you know, you have to be cognizant of what you do before you come to the gym, what you do after, you know, how you eat. When you leave the gym, the rest, you come to the gym for, say, 45 minutes to an hour a day, or not, maybe 3 times a week, 2 times a week. The rest of your life, the rest of the day or that time, you have to be conscious and wise. You know, you talk about the underlying diseases or the other issues, especially persons with COVID that are afraid, because once they know that these things are happening. But when you look at the kids, the children nowadays, they're overweight. And when I go to my kids' school, I mean, they bully our children to say that they're too skinny. Some of the kids in their classes will say, oh, you know, you don't. And when I see my son put down some food and the thing about it, but it's understanding, you know, where I grew up, I realized our lifestyle has changed, but it was good to a sense until the fancy stuff came, the imported stuff, the GMOs, the excessive fertilized stuff, the things that we're adding to stuff. The fast-paced life that we do a lot more of. For instance, you get up in the morning and you're going to get some bread and 1 egg. That's the first thing you're going to do. And though the kids were more active, people were more active, people were moving around, but something has changed. I mean, I've been a trainer for so long and I did not realize that up until age 20, you have a constant metabolic rate. People will say, oh, my metabolic rate is slowing down. It stays constant between 20 and 60. It's our lifestyle, it's our eating, whether it's the eating, whether it's the resting, even things such as unforgiveness, like how you feel about a situation, how long you hold on, because those things will drive stressful eating. You have a situation, whether you're at home with a spouse that you're having issue and you'll take, so those things are what? Those are some unrest that the body, you need to be at rest. I remember some years ago there was this thing in New York about people sitting together and eating. And they would pray, they would breathe, they would do all these things. And they'll just eat and talk and put their forks down. And people lost hundreds of pounds without exercise. Because the process of eating the food, that is how the French would eat, in Spain, that siesta or whatever they call. We are rushing all the time, and so we are not even giving the very food that we're putting in our body. We're not giving grace. We're not sitting down to appreciate the fact that we're alive and we can eat. So a simple thing as your meal. How do you process food? How do you understand what food does to the body, the fuel that food provides for you to live? And that is, I think, that is why I say 80%, because it's very, very important. And then we'll add other things into it, but I feel the food is so much, because the food will cause you to, the wrong food will, or the wrong timing of the food will cause you to not rest. You'll be up hours because you ate the wrong food, you have indigestions, you overeat, overeating. So the different ways that you incorporate food can have adverse effect on your life.
I mean, so in essence, what I hear you saying is that our relationship with food has to change. And our relationship is not just in terms of what's on the plate, but in terms of how you approach to what's on the plate. I heard you speaking of a very communal experience, if you will, for food. I think and I've said it, I am not with that sort of background and insight that you have, but I've long said that we have a pathological relationship with food, right? One that is unhealthy. The way we eat and the reasons why we eat and the quantity of what we eat. But the reality is that so many people are confused. As a medical doctor who supposedly has so much more of the information, I struggle with it. And what I struggle with most importantly is actually with my lifestyle. That is perhaps the most difficult part to change. My career, my profession, my dedication to my career. I think anyone who knows me know that I perhaps work more than most individuals, right? I work for very long hours, and sometimes several days, and sometimes all week. And food becomes one of the things that I need to remember. Oh, I need to eat something. And of course, like a lot of individuals, I think when I do have my heaviest meal, sometime is at the end of my workday, when everything else. I've done everything else for the day, so I get up in the morning, have coffee, and I'm sure a lot of you listening to this right now will relate to this, right? You get up in the morning, and if you're trying to squeeze something in the morning, perhaps getting your kids ready for school, or you probably try to get to the gym, or whatever occupies you, or you wake up late in the morning, you barely have breakfast, have some coffee, don't have any breakfast, and perhaps you go on through the entire day at 10, 11, or 12 o'clock. You try to squeeze something in, you perhaps skip a full lunch, and then at dinner, that's when you have some time, you settle on, you have that meal, that giant meal that's waiting for you. Is this, first of all, is this a problem? And we're going to go to a break, so we'll have some time to think about this. But I really want to debunk the theories around how we eat, what we eat, and the timing of our meals. Because there's so many of the structured 8 glasses of water a day, 3 meals a day, and I think people are realizing that life does not allow for us to have, for everyone to maintain that same structure, and that one-size-fits-all approach is no longer working for most people. Thank you so much. We'll be back with you in a few minutes.
WhatsApp Agility Exports today at 1-246-417-0477 or email us at info@agilityexports.com to get yours now.
Hold on, stop. Think about the drink before you take a drop. Read up on the label on the back. They say it's ain't sugar, low and fat, but don't be fooled by that. Drink some water, share some love. Tell your body you're sweet enough. Drink some water, share some love. Tell somebody you're sweet enough.
Welcome back. HealthWise is brought to you by the St. Kitts, Nevis and Medical and Dental Association and this station, ZIZ. Tonight we're discussing nutrition, fitness, all the things we care about and we often get so wrong. I have the perfect individual in the studio with me to help us with this. Not a medical doctor, enough of the doctoring. I have somebody who has achieved it, and she has medals to show for it, by the way. I have in the studio Paula Collins, and just before the break we were discussing our lifestyle and how the 3 meals a day scenario causes more stress for people like myself. And I imagine some of you listening right now tonight who just can't find the time to have this 3 square meals a day. So what do? Do you just accept the fact that, like I've said, well, this is my life, and I will try to get in some exercise when I can. I feel sometimes embarrassed, I'll tell you, when patients come to me and they say to me, well, I can't find time to exercise, and I'm sitting around across the table and I'm here preaching to them that they should exercise, and I say to them, well, you know, if you can't find time to exercise, it's like driving your car around and saying you can't stop to get gas. While at the same time I cannot factor in a gym, I cannot factor in a proper meal, because I feel that my lifestyle, I make excuses and I have all the reasons why I can't get to have 3 meals a day. Am I doomed?
No, you're not. You are, that will lead to, so for instance, now the latest craze is intermittent fasting. Fasting is an old terminology that was used in the Bible for the prophets, Jesus, all of that, all of those drama.
When I hear fast, prayer has to come behind it. Whenever I hear fast, I think prayer has to come.
Use it. For instance, in our culture of life, food is a thing that we do as a people. When you wake up in the morning, you're thinking about breakfast. Breakfast could be, you're breaking a fast. You could make it at 3 or 5. And for some persons that might be hard, but once you've started, you could do it in increments. So we're talking about intermittent fasting. The stress of trying to find food and making food as a busy person yourself, for me, I had to condense my food into sometimes 8 hours or just 6 hours of the day. And I target my meals like that. So what I've discovered through trials and the different researches with intermittent fast, men have a little bit of edge over women when it comes to not eating for a long period of time. Us as women with our hormonal issues, as we have different issues, men do have some, but you guys get the little a plus. You get a little, you get ahead of.
We have our stuff too.
You have a little issue, but it's not bad. So for you who's a person who you have to know what works for you and utilize it to the best of your ability. For instance, you're not a person who wants to eat in the morning. Black coffee is okay. Having some black coffee, not putting, because you don't want to over sweet, you don't want to put this excessive sugar. A lot of people say I have black coffee, but it actually has 2 spoons of brown sugar or whatever sweetened stuff. So you get up in the morning, you have to think about that. Okay, I'm going to use this as getting healthy. So what do? I plan my day, whether you drink some water, you have your black coffee without sugar, or people get so caught up nowadays with these, the sugar, this type of sugar, stevia is not good, or artificial sugar. People are out there researching in the space, trying to find the best substitute so we can have healthier lifestyle. So you could put some stevia, the good quality, or monk fruit. You have different types that is not high in sugar, that will not take you out of a fasting. Because what you want to do, you want it to be able to say, okay, I'm going to honor this body. The food that I ate yesterday, how can I use it? Because you do not, there's always stored food left in the body in the morning when you wake up. You have not disposed of that food, so there's energy. So let's get into intermittent fasting and the energy. We have 3 macronutrients: protein, fats, and carbohydrates. So you eat your meal overnight, and the protein has to be used for the skeletal muscle, for the bones, for the repairing of the organs and all of that. So you have 2 other fuels that you have readily available. So you wake up in the morning, you might still have, you will still have glucose left over in the liver. So you could utilize that. You don't have to worry about food or be concerned. The process of eating is such a hard and taxing thing on the body. So you're up, you're not ready to eat, you're putting food in your body. You can honor that by just using those fuels. You could do 4 minutes of push-up, maybe 30 seconds, and it's very effective. Just 4 minutes. I think they call it Tabitha.
Yeah.
Somebody that has done that, very effective. Because now you're not eating, so you don't need that excess. You've set the precedence for the day. You wake up in the morning with those high cortisol, you can get some, now lower it. And you focus, you say, okay, whatever time I'm done with my work, that's going to be my first meal. This is, you've pre-done this in your mind because I work a certain time. But the thing you have to do, the most important meal then is that meal that you used to, the first meal that you eat, you're breaking your fast. Whether it's 5 o'clock.
Is there a time though? Is
No,
there a time cutoff?
no. See, some persons, they're male, that there was this one meal a day, OMAD, that works well for men. For some men, a lot of men, because men are more muscular. For women, it works for a time and then it stops working, right. Because we start wasting our muscle. The body start tapping into muscle because the different issues that goes on with women, whether it's menstrual cycle, the different kind of, you have to know your cycle, know what's happening. So for men will, a male will eat one meal and that's perfectly fine. You find the energy because now you're not overconsumed with food and you eat to satiety. It's harder though to get all your nutrients in one meal.
I want to stick a pin here for a minute because you have said something to me that it's not only news, but it's mind-blowing, if you will. So the long-held notion that if you don't have your breakfast by 10 a.m. in the morning, it slows your metabolism down, or if you have one meal a day, it slows your Are you saying that
there's nothing that is so wrong and that's so misleading for years? Nothing. It's not. In fact, you'll find that your cognitive function increases. You get leaner because now the body has no other choice than to tap in and burn that extra fat that you're carrying around. You have to use, so when you use up your glucose, which you would have, because it's the body's always ready to the muscle, you know. In people that are insulin resistant, whether through type 2 diabetes, the other illnesses that happens, their muscle is probably not as ready as someone who's, you know, basically healthy to use up this glucose. But there's still hope for those persons because you're going to retrain. Like people will say, oh, if I don't eat, I'm going to die. But what it is you're starting a new process. So for instance, let's talk about the whole going without the day. So if you eat at 5 a.m. or 5 p.m., 6 p.m. in the morning, in the night, okay? From 6 p.m. to 6 the following morning, that's 12 hours. You add 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? So for the ones who are not as extreme and are worried about that you have to eat breakfast, 16 hours is perfectly fine. I don't recommend people continue to do these extended fastings. People will say, oh, I fast with coconut water. That is the biggest rubbish that you can, because no, coconut water has electrolytes, yes, but it has sugar contents to it, the water, the coconut water. So you're breaking your fast. So you've started a process of eating. So when you're eating, you want to be cognizant of something we call muscle protein synthesis. That ignites muscle, that causes muscles to repair and do the work that it's designed to do. So if you drink coconut water, the body has nothing, because there's no protein within this particular food that you're eating. It's going to store this thing, or it could aggravate your blood sugar, because now you've gotten up in the morning, high cortisol, and you just add sugar. There's more sugar to a high cortisol.
I hope you recognize that you flipped the whole thing on its head, and there has to be more than just this one touch point. I know there's a book in the making, and that's for another part of the show. But Paul, I know people. I have people in my own family who are working out, not daily, but certainly more often than I am. And I'll tell you, they're climbing Timothy Hill up and down. But you can tell that the weight loss is modest, if anything at all. Just you know, I imagine not speaking to any specific individual, but what do you think is going wrong there?
You know, what I will say is, if you've been sedentary for a long time, you know, your cardiovascular health will be off. Walking, just a little bit of start. We don't even, it's an activity that you do. You could do a little walking. But to use this as the primary resist, because what we need is to resist the muscle. We need a resistant training. And it doesn't mean that you have to go to the gym. You could do wall push-up or elevated on a chair. You could have a chair a certain height. And if you're having issues, you could do, you could lower the chair, you could step up on stuff. But the fact that if you're gonna, let's go back to the walking and doing this thing constantly, daily. It's an activity that's not registering anything. You're basically doing more of it could reach a state where you also start tearing down the muscle because of the excess. Because it's a steep hill, and you're walking and you're constantly doing this, so we're not sure if you're in the aerobic, what aerobic system or the anaerobic system. Right. Because now you walk and you walk.
Just for the benefit of our viewers who may not understand aerobic versus anaerobic, aerobic means that your body is using oxygen to burn the glucose, and anaerobic means that it's doing so in the absence. And there's lactic acid, I imagine, being built up at that point, right? Right.
Yeah. Or a sprinter, So persons will want to do the sprinters. They cannot. You see, when a sprinter, the ATP from 0 to 90.
Very well.
I try a couple of times to pretend that I'm going. Since I'm the coach, I feel like I could run a 90 meters, and I'm like, when I get to 50, I'm like, why isn't this finished? Right. This thing is hard. Right. Just 50 meters of even 50% of exertion, even 40. So that's hard. So when people are continuing to go up these hills and overdoing it, their heart rate are elevated high, they're burnt out, the constant going up and doing this. No, after you've gotten into that, walking is for the mind, the heart, the thinking, but you have to do something extra to strengthen and to build the muscle. And that is when it's sad to see people of now thinking that, okay, if I'm not walking, I'm running. So there's no added value to all of that. You could do that in addition to your resistant training. So whether you're going to stay home and you do the girl push-up, and when you get stronger, it's a girl push-up or knee push-up. I don't know if, here we go. Kim calls it the girl push-up. Right? Or as you get stronger, you want to push yourself to a different level. So now you want to make sure that you have to be honest with yourself. And understanding it, you need a trained professional to understand that you cannot start and go to 10 sets of push-up. You have to know your limit and when to cap it, because it will turn you off from the excessive sore. Not enough is too much is just as bad as not enough. So you don't want to be tearing up the muscle. You want to know from a professional how much to push and how much to pull. Say, for instance, you who are a working individual and a professional who's out there, 15 minutes a day in a gym can be so effective, but you're not allowed. So instead of you're going to the gym and you're taking this break, and some people have to, if you just push and put that muscle to failure. But you have to do lighter weights. You can't do the regular heavy weights, because you can take the muscle to failure and do it at the normal, as your maximum capacity.
There's just so much to unpack here. I think it's a good time to perhaps announce the numbers that are at the bottom of our screen. Our lines are open. All right. The numbers at the bottom of your screen: 869-466-2666, 869-662-8674, 869-767-4765, and if you're calling from overseas, our number is 1-239-645-4500. So I'm listening now, and it seems like everything I've done in the gym so far I've done wrong. One, because I've always felt if I don't have an hour to dedicate to working out, I shouldn't go. I've always felt that the people who look the best in the gym are the ones who spend the most time at the gym. I've always felt that my meals. So just to recap, you're saying that my inability, based on my lifestyle, I can somehow shape my lifestyle in a way that it works for me. And intermittent fasting is one of those ways. And folks, I stumbled on intermittent fasting I would say maybe about a year or two ago, and it was incredible. Because I've I've long struggled with the fact that we couldn't possibly, I think in a very industrialized world where we have electricity 24 hours a day, I cannot possibly imagine that we were ever brought into this world with the ability that we must have constant access to food, refrigerated food, food that can be cooked 3 times a day. I've always struggled with that, with the concept of that. The very same I've struggled with the fact that people shouldn't be drinking so much milk as they do. We're the only mammals who consume milk so long after, and that's for another show. But there are many things, and this is one of the things I've struggled with. So that's why when I stumbled on intermittent fasting, and we can speak about this for another show, the mTOR pathway, which is the mammalian target of rapamycin, and just how much studies are showing just how much this reduces. It gives the body time to deal with not only the food that we've consumed, but also all the metabolites, all that product that needs to be excreted from the body. It gives it time. That's what fasting does. And this is precise, and actually it's been shown to reduce the incidence of some cancers, right? So there are benefits to not having constant access to a meal. The reality is that from a cultural standpoint, for many individuals in the Caribbean, having food and having lots of it is, for many individuals, a sense of doing well, a sense that you are well-to-do, you're not starving, because the reality is, for those of us who grew up in the 70s, the neighbor who had plenty of food, that was a rich person, right? I see Kim looking at me. I think Kim can relate to that, right? That was the rich person, and for us, we feel that the way to show that we are up and coming or middle class is to stock our double-door refrigerator with everything that we can find on the supermarket shelf, right? So there is that penchant to consume, and to consume all the time as often as we can. We also make up for it with, as you said, with our depressive conditions. We eat out of frustration sometimes, right? That meal, though, I have at the end of the day when I'm breaking my fast, what should that meal look like? And I think if you can just wrap into this for me, the concept of what a balanced diet, because a balanced diet, I go back to my kindergarten and primary days when what a balanced diet looked like then. I don't think I've revisited the concept since then. I think when I think of it, this is what I go back to in my mind. What should a balanced diet look like?
Well, what it is, like, for breaking that fasting, there are persons who would use, like, a simple thing, like just to reintroduce food to the body, like maybe a broth, whether it's fish, whether it's a chicken broth, or even a bone broth from animals, or like cows or whatever. Or I think one of the better things to do when you're having that short is have some lean protein, because the body is ready for food and you want to repair the skeletal muscle. You want to make sure everything is ready. You can, so for instance, when we say lean protein, so if you're a male who is 180 pounds, right? It's okay to eat 180 grams of protein, because your body needs to repair. Or some people will say a little bit above that, especially if you're exerting or if you do exercise on that particular day. So you could say, okay, I have 6 hours, or you have 4 hours of eating window. Let's put it to 5. You could eat for an hour and then have the body calm down, and then you could, another hour later or 90 minutes, you could have your regular meal. And you want to make sure that it incorporates so many other things. Whether it's a good quality protein, then for me, when you're eating, you want to make sure the protein is the priority, because you want the best stuff to feed and nourish the body. Then you add the fats. Most protein in life comes with, like, real protein comes with fat. So egg, that's a perfect protein. Eggs with the egg yolk.
Eggs with the egg yolk.
With the egg yolk.
That's important.
Right? A piece of salmon, whether snapper, we have a lot of snapper. These fish are more fatty fish, perfect food. A steak, a piece of steak which has been villainized for years, that you shouldn't eat steak. It's one of the most potent beef, beef, right? And pork, beef and pork. Sorry, not pork, but
something I haven't consumed,
not pork,
folks, in
beef.
in so many years.
Beef is more of beef is, right, to remind, beef is one of the most nutritious food, hands down.
I'm not sure whether Vera Marshall is looking at the show, but just so you know that the next time I'm switching my duck breast for a T-bone steak.
Yeah, it's the most. You can't. Like, let's go on to we're going to touch the cows for like. There's a story. Growing up, we would eat all these different kind of meats and fish and different things. I'm not sure if you remember eating. Have you eaten livers and the kidneys and the organ meats, right?
It was my favorite thing, but I was told it's unhealthy, so I stopped eating liver.
It's hands on the most potent protein and the leanest protein. It's even leaner than the muscle of the cow. So liver doesn't have fat. You have to put it in oil to get it, or add fat to it so that it's a little bit balanced. So it's one of the leanest protein. Now, mainstream, those fancy people that are going for health are selling organ proteins in capsule and pill forms, because a lot of persons who are vegan, vegetarian, are missing in B12, zinc, copper, all these things, and they're feeling lethargic. They have to add these things, different issues. So I think, apart from religious reasons that people have for not eating stuff, we can understand. But what is it that you're after? Are you after health? If it works for you, it works for you where you're seeing this. But all these things that were villainized to say that, oh, I don't. But when you look at how strong years ago, how young people used to be, that your mom would cook some liver or some kidney, and you eat that because they could cook it in a way that I don't understand why it tastes good looking at it now. And it's cheaper. It's so much cheaper. We have changed to a fast track life where the cows are out there grazing and all these things. Why are we focus on all these things that are outside? If we would just get back to that basic lifestyle which used to serve us well. Instead of people want to do, you don't want to have some green bananas or any tubers anymore. You want to go process. Oh, I need to have this. If you can just go back to the inception of where you started. So that is where we go back to the whole thing of, you want to get your quality proteins and your fats, and then you add your carbohydrates in the form of fruits and vegetable, tubers for satiety. So when you're eating, and then you'll understand when you're full. Some people will say, because if you're eating you cannot overeat protein too much. You're going to come a time when I can't.
So fats are not inherently bad, and by bearing the name fats doesn't mean that's what's making us fat.
No,
that's what I mean.
Fat is
what I'm
not,
hearing.
because all our organs sits in fat. We need fat for function.
And you know, this is so important, because I think what you've done tonight is helped so many of us medical practitioners who sometimes struggle to tell someone how we can utilize what is readily available to us to still lead a healthy life. And that's where most individuals struggle. In fact, I've challenged many nutritionists to say, you know, a lot of individuals are finding it, not only they find it very expensive to eat healthy, they're finding it and they give up, right? So most of my diabetic patients and so on, they just give up, or they hope that medication can compensate for all the transgressions, the dietary transgressions, right? So the fact that you're speaking about tubers, going back to the basics, because I thought about it for a very long time. My grandmother, my grandparents, and my great-grandparents, their yams and the dashings and the edos and so on, you couldn't get them away from this. In fact, I remember very clearly my grandparents traveling, and they would cut all the yams and freeze them and take them back to England and with them, because they were expensive over there. But these people, when you look at the percentage body fat on them, was significantly less right? The reason why this show is important, and I know a lot of this information. It's a lot coming at you. I will need to sit with Paul at some point after this show and several days afterwards to really make sense of all of this. But why this is important, it speaks to exactly what I've always hoped for, that somehow within the idea that you are diabetic or hypertensive, how can your lifestyle change? Not the temporary changes, not the things that feel burdensome, but some type of changes that you can still live some degree of a normal life with the foods that are natural to you, the foods that you are connected to, and your relationship with them is what we're talking about changing here tonight. And that's why this is such important information to so many of the individuals here listening right now. Individuals who feel that they need to go out tomorrow and lose the 20 pounds that they've taken several years to accumulate, right? And they want to take a shortcut around this because they want to look good in clothes, not concerned about health. They want to look good aesthetically. But Paula, the reality is that a lot of people who are listening here right now cannot afford a coach, right? So I mean, so there are people, there are those of us who thankfully may be able to reach out to you and say, well, I would like to work with you somehow. But what about the person who's out there and who's listening right now and who is just not, who's been in the gym for a while, who's trying all the little things and downloading YouTube videos on the Instagram feed? There's always something on your Instagram feed telling you how to lose weight, right? What would be your message to that person right now who's out there listening, who's doing something right now? What does that person need to change? What is the next step for that person starting tomorrow morning?
Well, one of the things I've noticed over the years in the gym, there's a lot of persons who are not sleeping, not resting. So we'll go even deeper into the whole concept of how do you start? You're saying, okay, so this person might be going to the gym five days or walking 5-6 days a week. Yesterday they only got 4 hours of sleep. Another thing I forgot to mention, you know how great intermittent fasting, what it does? You do not require the same amount of sleep because you're not eating, you're not exhausting your digestion. So say for instance, a person who eats 3 meals a day will probably need 7 to 8 hours sleep. You'll be effective with 6 because the process of digestion is not having any adverse effect on your body anymore. So even though people will say sleep, the sleep specialist will go on and say, 8 to 7 hours. No, you have to find that right cadence with sleep. You have to make sure that you're resting. So a thing is resting. And so what I say to people in the gym, if you're in good stance with your hips, your knees, you're good and aligned, do the compound movements, which are squatting, lunging. You could stand against a wall if you're on shore. Because all these things are on like beginners workout. Be gentle with yourself. And if you are, the problem with some of these beginners workout, you have a lot of persons that will come, but when you're saying to a person squat, they're descending and their knees are extending forward instead of sitting on a chair, like a chair-like form. So it's understanding what you do. Say if you do not want to say just squat, you could do maybe push-ups or kickbacks, or there's a very effective exercise that this scientist, Brett Contreras, it's actually a hip thrust that we use as a bridging. But what he has done, he has turned it into hip thrusting. I say to the female, lie on your floor and hip thrust. YouTube is a very sexy thing because a lot of the men, like, honestly, I told Kim before he retired, if I knew the importance of hip thrusting, Kim would run faster still.
I also have had 5 kids, but...
Yeah, or 10, 25. Because men tend to be conscious of their hip, and they don't. And remember, the hip, the gluteus maximus, the biggest, the largest muscle in the body. So you're there squatting, your leg pressing, and you relieve because it's a stigma to think, oh, you can't, men don't do this exercise. Right. It's all in the hips. I mean, it sounds away, but you know, the hardcore person that's always say, oh, he's squatting or nothing. So many persons have damaged their bodies with this squatting. It's not for everyone.
I think it's so important because I remember just a few weeks ago we were in lockdown, and people were lamenting the fact that they couldn't go to the gyms, they couldn't go to the places that they typically exercise, because I think people typically don't see the home as the place where they can get in a good workout, right? People feel like I need to be somewhere where there's some heavy weights, and I need to be somewhere where there's a treadmill. And for many individuals, they struggle with the concept of working out at home. So you're saying that one can do a full, complete...
Well, push-ups you could do, right. Wide stance, close stance, one arm, elevated feet, just in the whole format of a push-up, which is a compound movement. It works so many muscles, the chest, the back, the shoulders, the bicep, the tricep. So when it's the fancy things that we want again, we want our fridge. I tell people, if you're so broke, why did you put so much weight on in COVID? Yeah. Why did you go to the store? Sometimes I try not to go to the store when there's a lockdown, because as a trainer and a health coach, I'm like, what are you doing? I'm looking at your cart. You're going to kill yourself and your children because you're over consuming. You think that a hurricane is coming and it means put food in the fridge. You know you have food at home.
if you look in the studio there behind the glass, you can see that these things resonate so readily with the guys behind the glass, and I think all of us, right? But it's just, again, it is the natural thing. The thing we do not want to run out of is food. Our tanks can be on E, or even our propane will be low, but our cupboard without food, without bread or flour, those things. But the reality is that most people do not know. I'll tell you, people don't know what to buy. People think that, and again, if you're at home with a few kids, when you give a child a loaf of bread, that child is full, right? It's not the same as giving a child a head of broccoli or some
bacons and some saltfish without the drama.
Right.
Just something like that, right? Saltfish is one of the food. The protein, because we're not plantains, some ripe plantains, some green. People have become too fancy. We want these things that are making us sick. And why? And I mean, when you see, I have the privilege of watching a world-class runner and training Kim. Kim does not, if Kim will get up and he doesn't even care for food, I have to remind him, you didn't eat. And his metabolic rate is outside of this world. He gets his coffee and he goes about. People are too consumed with food all the time. And it's become our problem. It has not been a solution. And to say, because you can, the whole process of autophagy, where cells are being broken down in the body from not eating for, say, a 24-hour. And that thing, when you see how people are healing their bodies, because you're constantly piling up the body and you're walking past that fridge, you're seeing something that you didn't even want it, but because you saw it in the fridge. So don't put it in the fridge. And it's that discipline. And we could save so much more money, because when you eat healthier, you eat less.
Folks, we will take a quick break and we'll be back with you. Thank you for staying with us. This is such important information for those of you who really care about your health, not just how you look, but how you feel. Stick with us. We'll be right back with our closing remarks in a few. Thank you.
Hold on, stop. Think about the drink before you take a drop. Read up on the label on the back. They say it's ain't sugar, low in fat, but don't be fooled by that. Drink some water, share some love. Tell your body you're sweet enough. Drink some water, share some love. Tell somebody you're sweet enough.
Call or WhatsApp Agility Exports today at 1-246-417-0477 or email us at info@agilityexports.com to get yours now.
Want to get away? Now you can.
Stop standing in long ATM lines to withdraw cash. Use your national debit or black cards to complete a wide variety of transactions at supermarkets, variety stores, gas stations, pharmacies, and more. Shop online at the most popular websites and stores for quality brands using your national debit or black cards. And take back your time to enjoy all the things that you love to do. Remember, instead of waiting in long ATM lines to withdraw cash, use your national bank cards today.
National Bank, always here.
All right, so even offline, we're having some very healthy debate here. And just during the break, we were talking about, just how we grew up in the Caribbean. I mean, a Sunday meal, for example, those of you who still have Sunday meals with your family and you have, a term I learned here in St. Kitts, relish, which I struggled with because I didn't know what relish. Relish means something completely different for me. To me, it means delight. It also means that thing you put on hot dogs. But I learned that relish means meat. And you can't separate kittitions from the relish. It is something that, give me as much of it as possible. In fact, if you invite the kittition to your home and you give them a meal and there's no relish, you've kind of insulted them. You make a moussaka and say, well, the relish is in there, and they say, no, but I need to see it. Don't give me, this is not a meal. Yeah, they're very, very, very offended. But one of the things that I tried is meal replacement. So all those shakes that people, and when I'm in the U.S., for example, I go to Costco and I buy a couple of those cases of meal replacement shakes so that I don't eat. Are those healthy? Are those something you recommend?
They can be of good use if you find the best quality ones. I've read a study. I think I heard it from one of your lecturers when I was doing a talk at Ross that they're now putting sawdust in some protein. Sawdust? Like sawdust.
Really?
It's been contaminated.
Wow.
So unless you have a quality, no. The thing about it, which I'll touch, we have to go back again because there's so much.
Yeah.
You want to eat your calories. When you drink your calories, you spike and messes up because you're taking a shot of something that should have been slowly going into the body. You're the doctor, you know how the process of digestion works.
Of course.
So it's good if you're a bodybuilder who's trying to build weights and sustain it, or it can play a role in the on-the-go lifestyle, but it can't be something that is overdone or you're always doing it because you want to eat your calories. Years ago we had these juicing. And I bought some of the best juicers. Yeah. It helps for a short time, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and those things are expensive. A Vitamix will set you back some $400 right?
You're not going to sit and eat 5 apples and 3 this, but you're going to condense all of that, and it's still high fructose sugar that is bothering the insulin, where it's messing up the liver and doing these things. So you want to eat your fruits.
Well, I can speak from the health perspective, and I know from the health perspective, this is a big problem. Again, as I said, I think our rates of diabetes speak to it, our rates of obesity speaks to it. I think that we have a COVID-19 pandemic, but we've always had an obesity epidemic in the Caribbean. I just look around, and you spoke something that's very dear to my heart: kids who typically who you'd expect to burn fat or consume fat at record rates because they're just so active. You see kids today with abdominal fat that is excessive, right? You see kids who are obese, morbidly obese, and it's very concerning. In fact, when I started medicine, which is not many years ago, but it's a long time, type 2 diabetes was something of the elderly. And we see these days right now 20-something-year-olds with an onset of type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is so heavily linked to lifestyle, which means that in so many ways it is totally avoidable. And you find type 2 diabetics in the 20s, and you tell yourself, well, knowing diabetics and all the many complications of it, by 40, 50, that person is going to have one of the complications, whether it's the neuropathy or nephropathy or any one of those. But from your perspective, you being in the fitness industry for a while, I imagine you've graced many gyms. How big a problem is it in terms of individuals who are just doing the wrong thing? How big an issue? And here in St. Kitts, of course, which is where we are right now tonight.
In terms of working
individuals who are clearly just confused.
So I think it's a high percentage, 70, maybe 80, because you see, like I'll walk into the gym and people are they're fascinated, and sometimes because they see, sometimes they wonder of my age, because they realize that they're not achieving a goal that they've set out to do because of misinformation. People, like my husband and I talk, not because you were a runner, it means that you're a strength training coach. So it's his time to stay under my tutelage. So he's my assistant trainer over there, even though because his humility, he's humble enough to learn, because I will say, Kim, do this, but he doesn't get the concept for myself as a trained individual. So you'll find somebody, because they were a runner, you say, oh, come and train me. You don't know the half of what it takes for proper form. The persons are taller in height, shorter, different center of gravity. I experienced that with my son. My son is 6'4". So when I have him squat, it was so hard for him to squat. And I realized because of his height, he was not able to descend the way. So life is even the people around you. You could use as your science, because you're looking at persons and it's not one size fit all. And persons are doing so much wrong, so much adverse things to their body, because they're not willing to say, this is my body. It's a temple. If you don't have your body, it doesn't matter what you have. It doesn't matter how rich you are if you don't have your health. Let's talk about Steve Jobs. I'm sure he would have done anything to save his pancreas. And so people, I get so passionate about it, because I'm saying there's so many things we missed along the way, but now we know better. Let's just collectively do better and take baby steps. I'm not expecting you to do what I do or what Kim did, but little step, gradually. You seek information and you'll find it. And so there are a lot of persons who are, as you're saying, eating incorrectly, not resting. We hold on to a lot of emotions. So even all that aspect of health, and going to the gym and just confused, pure confusion. And if you could say, you know what, I don't know. I need to learn this thing. I know that I'm a brilliant businessman or woman, I'm a brilliant doctor, but I can always learn more. There's so many things I had to change over the 18 years because of misinformation that I was given as a trainer. And I had to say, I was wrong about this. There's science that shows that there was some agenda which the scientists might have chosen, or because this person was bodybuilding. Bodybuilding, fitness and health start from bodybuilding. We don't want to be no bodybuilder. We want to have a healthy lifestyle. So you're not expected to go into the gym thinking, oh my God, that's, what's they call that? Planet Fitness. You ever seen that advertised? You want to be realistic. Train for your body type and ask the necessary questions and ask someone competent. When you go to a trainer, find out what have they done, who have you trained, what's your qualification. Don't just have anyone just take your body and just says, I'm a trainer. Find out what it is that they've experienced and done before today or at that particular time that you've met them. Because knowledge, we just need to know better and start doing a little bit better.
So another fad that I'll call it a fad because I think from a health perspective, there are concerns about that. And you're right in the sense that, not only do we think of the one-size-fits-all approach, but it's either one thing or the other rather than one and the other. Another thing, I've seen individuals carrying this massive, and I call them kegs of water around, and people are chugging water like crazy all day long. And I've always, again, one of the things that I've always been at odds with is the concept of 8 glasses of water a day, which seems to be standard. I don't think there's any merit to that. I think that is heavily dependent on the work that you do, on who you are as a person, and you can't tell somebody, for example, who has heart failure to drink 8 glasses of water a day, right? But is there something inherently wrong with this? Because again, as I said, the people walk with the small water bottles, but I've seen some, and they seem to be growing bigger and bigger over time, and people are literally hauling them around and just chugging water, and I'm saying, I mean, I understand that water is healthy, but how much of it is unhealthy?
You need to drink your water when you're thirsty. People are just drinking all the time. And two, even that information was given to us. You had to drink 8 glasses of water. And that is why you have to go in search of the truth. And it's some years ago I realized that is not, you have a cup of coffee or tea, that you could constitute that as water or drink or a liquid. So you don't always have to be drinking water when you're, people want to drink a whole bunch of water when they're about to go to bed and putting so much pressure on your kidneys. Like, why are you drinking? Why are you breaking your sleep to go to, because you say, oh my God, I didn't drink my last 4 glass of water. You want to drink it at 7 o'clock. You want to cap. Drink what you need to drink. Drink when you're thirsty and cap it so that you get your sleep. Because getting up to go to use the bathroom, you want that sleep, a sound, consistent sleep without the breaking of the fact that you just had 4 glasses of water. That's not healthy. And we need to go into this keto, carnivore, vegan, vegetarian for another day, because that's a whole different vibe.
Yeah, because that's the new guy. That's the new kid on the block, correct? Right? I mean, everyone is into the keto diet, and everyone is, and again, as I said, the reason why this doesn't work, and just to those of you listening as well, the other thing that's important is knowing just how those decisions that you take impact your health. Not everything, and again, I imagine those things, they've existed for whatever period of time they exist, and they've made some money because clearly they've worked for some individuals, but they don't work for all individuals. I know many individuals who cutting carbs, for example. You're Jamaican. You've been in the fitness and the athletic industry, and I think you know very well the recent controversy around Jamaicans and their diet and wondering whether they give them an unfair advantage. Right, and with the complex carbs that they consume, whether there's a higher caloric thing that actually plays to give them essentially an energy boost that the other individuals didn't get. And I mean, maybe you can speak to that, but I also wanted to, what I want to understand, Paula, and I think it would be remiss of me if I left here without asking that question, is why does this matter so much to you?
You know what it is.
Of course, what you've achieved with Kim, by the way.
One of the things I look back, even into my 20s, the way I struggled, I didn't understand. I realized even as adults, there's so many insecurity in our peers, that's the very persons, because maybe they've done something wrong, or like people will approach me with this, like, why you're looking like this, or, and like, what I'm ready to share, because I met this, I've been privileged. It's God inspired that I chose this path that's how I see it, and I'm willing to share, because a man is a fool to what he or she doesn't know, and if you don't know, you don't know. Why can't we impart the knowledge? A friend of mine and a client of mine, he says, healthy people want to help people heal. I ask her why, because she is so excited she loves the keto diet, and it works for her based on her situation. It's a very, very exceptional way of eating. We'll go back into where soldiers were having issues with their, the soldiers, how they were, when they will go to war and all these different things, when you want the ketones to be in your body. But people now are drinking these MCT oil. You're over fat and you're adding so much unnatural oil. That's the body needs to burn the fat that it has, or you use a natural oil or fat. So when people are, because I'm saying, I'm the trainer, but she's so excited, and I'm saying, oh my God, and she's like, haven't you seen yourself? Because I'm there in the gym and I'm training you and I'm seeing people struggling, but someone out there say, oh, I'm fine, and they'll say these things. And I have a daughter, I have sons, and those insecurity that people walk around just because you couldn't find 5 or 6 minutes to make a good choice. and you project it on others, you feel like we are struggling as trainers too. I'm a trainer who struggles. I find that I purposely did not check it out because my legs, I started having swollen feet. I wasn't sleeping. My hair started, I like my wig and stuff, but I just use it like, I know I'm cute with the short hair here, So I just like, I'm going to pop a short hair and but it's because my, you like that part, right?
I love it.
It's because my hair, I started like, oh my God, a wig wasn't fitting. And I'm like, I'm going to rock a short hair because Kim met me this way. Yeah. So, and I know I'm fine. And so people can't make fun of that and say, and I'm always willing. Maya Angelou says, when you learn, you teach others. When God has, I feel like a fine 47-year-old woman. I'm like, Kim, you're going to see me at 50. I'm going to be banging, even to 60, I don't want a bunch of old people like, 60 is the new 30 or 20.
Absolutely.
And I think, I like young people as my friend.
Yeah.
Because as soon as people start getting old and out of shape, they become grumpy. So I'm like, I want to help some old people that it's not over until it's over. Because you'll see another 47-year-old and it's a different energy.
Yeah.
And we were all young, we understand, and I think young people, we project this energy on the younger folks. We could talk to them. I love the youths because I realized there was so many information and misguidance that I went through. Right. And for me, it's like, how can I help someone? And let us start because because of the information that we receive that we're not willing to impart or to share it with others. The next generation coming up, they're so confused, even with their belly fats and so many overweight people. I just want to go and talk to them. I want to get a thing where I could take all the kids and just take care of them because obviously the parents are losing it. And if I can teach a parent, then that parent will in turn teach their child. They will have tools to help our future that we're destroying without even realizing that we are destroying our future.
I think you make a very valid point, which is the education or the re-education, if you will, of our youth. It has to start there because once they get past 20, those diseases are already setting in. All right, the obesity has already set in. It becomes very difficult to reverse that tide. Right, it's very difficult to retrain a child to eat differently when a child has been introduced to a particular food group from such a very early age. There are many parents who feel that the way to reward a child and to stimulate the child even is to feed them those fast foods and to make sure to give them access. That's a reward for a child today. So I really think if we can make that impact, and I say it because we're speaking purely to the fitness end of this, but the reality is that, as I said, COVID will become less of a thing, and we'll go back to what really matters, which are those non-communicable diseases. That's what is really killing us, and so much of it is tied to the way we eat. And I think tonight what we covered was so important because we're not just talking about let's try to look like Paula. That's not what we're saying. Let's try to run like Kim, which, if we can achieve that, well, of course, why not? But I don't think this is the objective of the show. I think it is saying two individuals here who are successful in their own right. Behind every great man, behind every man's great success, there is a woman who is equally great at his side. That's my quote. The idea of behind, no woman is behind any man. They're right next to him. And Paula is that person to Kim. And I believe that we have this individual who I've had the privilege of meeting tonight and bringing to the show. Before you leave, Paula, and I just want to take 1 minute to ask if anyone wanted to get in touch with you. What is the next step? I know how to. I'm not losing your number, and you don't dare block mine, because I'm going to be in touch as of tomorrow. But I really think what you've done is that you have actually debunked a lot of things that we thought were true. I think you found a way to make fitness a lifestyle change as opposed to. So I think what you've really honed in is on the concept that this is a journey, not a destination. Most individuals think, I want to look good in that dress tomorrow. The question is, how can you revisit everything that you've done so far, rethink everything around the idea of fitness, and help to, one, which is most important, I think, to, if not completely eliminate the likelihood that you suffer with all these conditions, to at least delay it as much as possible. Because the reality of it is that those diseases are setting in way too early. This is what the SKNMDA is about. This is what we're about. We're about educating individuals to ensure that our people who we come into contact with every single day, look and feel healthy, right? We'll have a healthier nation. And, you know, the idea that doctors are here to make money off people's diseases, I think doctors have a place to play in preventing disease, which I think is the most important thing. I don't think that our countries can afford curative medicine. I think we have to focus on preventative medicine, and this is the purpose of this show. I know we've had some really good laughs, we've had some really good time here tonight, but this is the objective of our show, is how can we prevent those diseases from setting, and they've already set in, how can we prevent the complications? So just quick 30 seconds. If someone wants to get in touch with you tonight, how can they and where should they find you?
Well, presently, Kim and I, we run the Kim Collins Foundation, and we train outside at the Royal St. Kitts Gym. That's where we are. My number is 762-8168. If someone wants to call and find out about what they could do to just, you know, to enhance, I'm always ready and willing as long as I'm available, and it's the correct time to speak to you and to see where you're at and what I could do, Kim and myself, to get you to your goal that you're trying to achieve. We're always, you know, healthy life, healthy people, heal people, or healthy people help and heal others.
Well, Paula, thank you very much. Thank you for coming to the show, and thank you to the guys who are, you don't get to see them, but behind every great show, there are some great men besides me, and women. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you to our audience, because without you, none of this would make any sense at all. So thank you for your time tonight. Have a good night. Go to bed. Paula says sleep is important, just as important as eating right. So go to bed. I'm headed to bed soon myself. Have a good night. Thanks you so much for your time. It was a privilege being in your homes tonight. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
I forget to.